I am happy to be joined once again by my friend James Mathewson. You guys know him from last week. A lot of you loved the live. You gave me great feedback. You wanted him back. Well, guess what? We got our boy back from across the pond in the UK. You know him from this live, but also if you watch BBC or Sky News, he's a contributor. He is over there spreading truth, and he has been everywhere talking about this Epstein scandal. And I'm going to frame it in a second, but first off, thanks for being here, man.
Absolutely, man. I mean, this is the highlight of my week amongst an otherwise absolutely crazy schedule at the moment, because this stuff's it's just cold fire, as we'll come to talk about, I'm sure.
It's insane. I mean, one of the things I wanted to start with is kind of how we're seeing real contrast and accountability with accountability levels, right? So in the UK, you're seeing the government nearly toppled. In the US, you see all of these figures still in place. So, for example, Howard Lutnick, who admitted that he was on Epstein Island, right? He visited Epstein's Island after he lied about his association. He said he cut off contact after the mid 2000s. So we have Howard Lutnick, who is now enthralled in this. You have Donald Trump, who obviously has been mentioned thousands of times in the Epstein files, had a close relationship. Virginia Giuffre was trafficked out of Mar-a-Lago. They go way back. And then you have Elon Musk, who we see now revealed in emails directly basically begging to go to Epstein Island after saying he rejected. So multiple people who lied about their interactions with Epstein. And as far as I can see, Howard Lutnick is still Commerce Secretary. Donald Trump is still President of the United States. Elon Musk still leads his companies. There's no accountability here. But meanwhile, in the UK, we have Peter Mandelson here, former U.S. ambassador whose association with Epstein has basically ground the UK government on the brink of potential collapse. And Prime Minister Keir Starmer has been dealing with this. So can you just tell us about who Peter Mandelson is, what is going on, and just the view from over there, man?
Yeah, absolutely. So to give everyone a bit of context and a bit of background, because you'll be forgiven for not knowing who Peter Mandelson is, right? He's a name not many people in the US have heard of until he became the ambassador. But he actually has a very long political history in Britain. You remember Tony Blair, the days of Tony Blair, a new Labour, which was kind of the Labour Party's resurgence in 1997 when they won an election. And Tony Blair's legacy, of course, is the Iraq War in Britain. That's what we remember about Tony Blair a lot of the time. He followed George Bush. He was kind of wooed by George Bush. Took him out to Camp David and got him all excited about the prospect of invading Iraq. And then they did it. So that government has always been, kind of viewed negatively because of that, really. But Mandelson was a part of that government. He was central to Tony Blair's election effort to become elected. And he's always been seen as a bit of a posh boy in the Labour Party. So kind of from an upper class background, very well educated, joined the Labour Party because he was a left wing in his circles. But he is a character who has been time and time again caught up in scandals. He actually held 2 government ministerial positions in the 90s, and he had to resign from both of them in disgrace because he was caught with private business people getting up to all sorts of shenanigans, including kind of giving them access to government when they shouldn't have had access to government, and those kind of things. It was private enterprise, rich people, private business people who were kind of his weakness, it was seen, right? Yeah. So fast forward to our Prime Minister now, Keir Starmer. The Labour Party are back in power after 15 years out of it. And his chief advisor, Keir Starmer's chief advisor, a guy called Morgan McSweeney, says, the position of US ambassador is opening up. Who should we put into it? And here appears Peter Mandelson. We should pick Mandelson because he can deal with Trump. He knows Trump. Not sure how he knows Trump, what kind of circles he's been moving in, but, he knows Trump. He can deal with him, all of this stuff. He thinks, okay, right, we'll sign off on that. It's now been revealed, and this is what the thing has compromised the UK government, that they had knowledge when they made that appointment of the fact that Mandelson had a friendship with Epstein, but not only that, he was continuing that friendship with Epstein after all of after he'd been found guilty, and he was in. There were emails between Mandelson and Epstein showing they were still friends. So that was that's kind of the crux of what's caused the problem for the
Mhm.
government. It led to the resignation of Morgan McSweeney, who advised the Prime Minister to make the appointment. It led to the resignation of the Director of Comms from Downing Street, because he, again, is friends with Mandelson and compromise. And it nearly led yesterday to the resignation of the Prime Minister, because the Prime Minister was, in this position where he'd appointed somebody knowing that they had connections to Epstein. And of course, it's all blown up. And yesterday, the big moment was that the Scottish Labour leader, so separate, kind of the same party, but a separate part of the UK, did a press conference and called for the Prime Minister to resign over this. So that's where we are at the moment. And that's, in a nutshell, what's happened.
It's stunning. And for those of you watching the US, could you imagine that level of accountability here? And I mean, just for everybody watching, we're talking about the UK, we're talking about the Epstein files, we're talking about the ramifications and the impact we're seeing in the UK and the juxtaposition to the total lack of accountability here in the US. Hit the like button. If y'all liking the conversation, pound it, unlimited likes, and subscribe to James Mandelson. If you haven't already, subscribe to me. We're doing independent journalism out here. So, yes. Okay. So James, we have essentially a situation where the Prime Minister's chief of staff, Prime Minister's comms director have resigned only for their only literally for their role in basically hiring Mendelsohn, their
Yeah, yeah.
association, and it's like, it's wild that level of radius of impact from Mendelssohn's interactions with Epstein has reverberated through the UK government, and not just the association or friendship, right? Because I mean, Mendelssohn's not, from everything we could see, he's definitely wasn't engaged in any of the actual sex trafficking. But what he
No,
did do
no.
was he shared trade secrets. He gave Epstein a heads up that the EU was going to prop up the euro,
Mm.
right, during the debt
Yeah,
crisis, right? So
yeah. He told them that Prime Minister Gordon Brown, when he was Prime Minister, he told them that he was going to go the night before that he resigned, which nobody else knew and would have known. So these are cabinet level secrets.
Mhm.
And of course, what was Epstein? He was a speculator, right? He
Yep.
makes money from markets.
Mhm.
So him having this advanced information meant that he was able to make money off the back of it. We don't know if he did, but it doesn't matter, because we also know that he gave Mandelson money. Mandelson's partner,
Yes,
the
Madison's
Mandelson's
spouse.
gay. And he's used, again, very uncomfortably. And I asked many of my LGBT friends about this recently, because he's very uncomfortably used his sexuality to try and claim distance from Epstein. Basically
Oh
saying,
yeah,
well,
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
gay,
yeah.
ever have, you know, um, which is a bit like Kevin Spacey. If you remember Kevin Spacey when he did the, well, I couldn't be a predator because I'm now going to come out. And it's seen very badly in the LGBT community, because it's trying to use that as some kind of shield.
Mhm.
But I think that when it comes to Mandelson, he'd taken money, and his partner had
Yep.
taken money from Epstein directly as well. He transferred him, I think, money on 3 different occasions. So again,
Yeah.
totally toxic, totally written off. But anybody now who was associated with him and who's given him a job is also tarnished with the same brush, basically.
Exactly, and that's classic corruption. You have basically Mendelsohn giving insider information to Epstein, who profits off speculating, and then being paid, basically, getting money from money from the spouse, and them upkeeping a friendship, and then you're right that damaging level of relationship has basically set off a bomb within the UK government, where you have Keir Starmer being pressured to resign. You have multiple aides resigning for simply playing a role in his hiring, and for again their knowledge of that, because the thing is the intelligence agencies had to have known
Oh yeah,
what
they
was going
advise,
on. So
they advise Prime
they
Minister.
advise. So it's
Yeah,
like, and just to zoom out on this whole thing, it's just Epstein was so insanely connected. He basically leveraged people against each other. He would leverage his ties to these wealthy people to get young girls to promise them future opportunities, and then he would leverage the young girls, the underage girls, to get more rich people to engage with them, and then also leverage his financial backing to say, his other ties to basically claim credibility. He was a con man. He conned his way through
yeah,
this,
exactly. Yeah.
and it's just interesting because he operated as like kind of an intelligence service within himself because he would basically come and he would curry favor from people. He would blackmail people inherently by knowing their secrets and effectively get what he wanted. And it's insane. Again, all of this happened after he'd already been convicted. So they knew he was a sex offender. He was a
Yeah.
registered sex offender. He pled guilty to soliciting prostitution of a minor. Right. So
This is the other challenge for the UK government, because there's another thread to this that's running through the whole of the UK, and that's the royal family. Okay,
yes,
so separately to Mandelson and the government, that's happened. That's accountability. You've seen it in action. That's what should happen, right? We should have a scandal and we should see resignations. That's the way it should happen. On the other hand, you've got the former Prince Andrew, so son of the Queen. Andrew, and again, a lot of people have only come across him in the US since this has happened, right? He's not he was in line to the throne, but he would never be in power really because he's not the eldest son, but he's King Charles's brother, and he was seen as Queen Elizabeth's favorite son. He could do no wrong, right? But his nickname in the British press was Randy Andy throughout the 80s and 90s because he was known for his women, right? And he was always around young women. And it's amazing how much of this stuff, when it comes out about people like this, is like so obvious and
it was
so
in your face the whole time.
yeah. We don't do anything about it. So he has obviously been stripped of his title, prince, been kicked out of the royal family essentially. But the government, the UK government, you have to think of the royal family as almost like a tool for the UK government. Okay, so we, the taxpayer, pay for them. Essentially, it's a very convoluted system, but we give them money. They have an allowance. They have their own assets and their own finances as well. I would argue, as somebody who's anti-monarchy, that it's actually all ours anyway. But never mind. That's a separate debate. But it turns out that Queen Elizabeth obviously used the Crown's money to pay off Virginia Giuffre, to settle with her when she had her civil case against Andrew, right? So we don't know because there's not a level of scrutiny on the royal family. They're very kind of protected. But we don't know if that was taxpayers' money potentially used to pay off a woman who was a victim of one of the members of the royal family being a paedophile and sex offender. I mean, it's staggering.
It's insane. It's staggering corruption.
And now all that's happened with him is he's been put on a different royal estate, a place called Sandringham, right out in the countryside. And he has to live there, bless him. He has to live in that mansion instead of one in the city. And his family, his wife, his ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson, she's been brought into disgrace because, again, after Epstein's conviction, she was emailing him asking for favors. And she was taking her kids, her teenage daughters, to go and visit him on the island. It's staggering. So
it's insane.
The question around, okay, you've held Peter Mandelson to account. Great. What are you doing about the royal family? Because the government, I mean, it's limited in what it can do, but it can do something. The Prime Minister meets with the King once a week. He sits down with him once a week at Buckingham Palace. And he could be saying to him, you got to do more.
Didn't the King speak out in a more forceful way than usual this week?
Yeah, he made a statement, which, again, they never say anything. Through the Queen Elizabeth years, they'd said nothing about anything. That's the way they operate, right? We don't have opinions. We don't have political opinions with a head of state, which works sometimes for them and doesn't work at others. But with this, Prince Charles has come out and said that he will cooperate with any police investigation. Now, that's not him saying he thinks there should be one, but the Met Police have never, to this day, launched an investigation into Andrew. I mean, we've got reams of evidence of him being a sex offender.
There's going to be pressure. There's going to be pressure for that, and again, that's the UK is horrified by this behavior.
Exactly.
And meanwhile, see you in there. Appreciate you in there commenting. Everyone, if you have questions for us, we're talking about the UK. We're talking about the Epstein files. We're talking about the world ramifications of the recent drop, the 3 million new documents. Also, hit that like button. We got to be back in independent journalism, get the algorithm boosted. But yes, I'm telling you, man, this is just insane. I mean, to see the impact it's having in the UK, to see the ramifications with Peter Mandelson, and then comparing it here, I'm just thinking about also even before that, I just got to get some of the other ramifications. We got the Norwegian princess as
Yeah.
well. You got other members of the royal family there, and it's like Epstein exploited these royals that have no real job, that have no real jobs, that just kind of like, sit there and rake in cash to exist and be monarchs. And he exploited these people, and he used them. He used their power for proximity to power to further his crimes.
Yeah.
He then, some of them like Charles, participating in the crimes, and then you have this
Andrew.
just sorry, Andrew, not Charles.
Just to
My
save
bad.
you.
My bad. Not Charles. Thank
Yeah,
you.
no.
Save me from the
King,
defamation.
we'll have to make a statement saying King Charles has done nothing wrong.
Yeah,
Let's
save me from the defamation. I am
we'll
currently
save you from the.
sick, so my brain is not at the top level at the moment. Yes,
Yeah,
Andrew, and it's just the scope and scale of this has been so insane. And from what you're seeing in the UK, what is the perception of what's going on, like in the US, and the total lack of accountability for anyone? Like you see, Howard Lutnick went to the Epstein island with his family.
yeah.
He'd invested in Epstein's businesses, and then you have Trump just
I mean,
talking to him, just being disgusting, clearly had some. I think what we can say at least definitively is he at least probably knew what was going on, judging by their interactions.
100%.
The very least. And there's no accountability here for any of them. Elon Musk is still leading all his companies, from what I can tell, and he was begging to get on the island. So,
Pathetic.
so what is the like? Do you all just aghast at what's
Yeah,
going on?
I'll be honest. The Trump stuff is the most interesting. I mean, that's the center of the focus for lots of people because if the UK government could collapse over a kind of protracted connection to Epstein, right? Like, which is very protracted, then how on earth can that man be sat as the president of the United States? And look, you're a very good journalist and you're very good at looking for facts and all the rest of it. I'm not. I don't need to be. Let me tell you my opinion on this. And it's that you've got, right. So if you knew a sex offender, right? So you've got a sex offender on one hand, Donald Trump, right? He's a sex offender. We know he is. And then he's friends with another sex offender and mixes with him and sent him a birthday note with the outline of a woman's body on it. All of these things that point to it. He's then in charge of releasing these files that he's talked about for so long and releases, them in an immensely redacted state so that we can't see the names of lots of the people. And he wants us to believe that he's not one of the people that he's protected. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. It's so obvious that this man is a co-conspirator of Epstein's, and it's so obvious that everybody knows it. And he sat there as the US president facing no repercussions for anything. And that's the story of Donald Trump's life. No repercussions for anything.
No repercussions.
No repercussions.
Just failing his way higher. And yeah, I mean, the thing is with this, it's just like we know for a fact Virginia Giuffre was taken from Mar-a-Lago by Ghislaine Maxwell in the year 2000. I believe that was the year when she was underage. And so we know that. And then Trump goes on to mention, unprompted, last year when he was describing why he had a falling out with Epstein, that Epstein was taking girls, plural people from Mar-a-Lago. So who else was trafficked from Mar-a-Lago? Number one.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that should be investigated. Then you have the birthday card, the weird "we share a secret," all of this disgusting stuff with Epstein, and it's very clear. And then Epstein outright saying that, of course, Donald knew about the girls.
Yeah, of course,
and saying that he's the other shoe to drop, like in the previous tranche of files, which were even more damning for Donald. I mean, we have these new uncorroborated FBI tips, that are in this new tranche of files, which should be investigated. But it's again, like the level of association itself should be enough to tank the presidency. That you have Mandelson didn't even engage in the sexual activities, the abuse, and that alone is toppling people who are even tangentially involved in giving the guy power. And now we have Lutnick, we have Trump, we have Bannon, Musk, all of these people. Bannon was out there just like trying to help Epstein rehab his image.
Rehabilitate his image, yeah.
unbelievable. It's just unbelievable, and it's disgusting, and it's unreal to me that the U.S. stands for this. That
Like, yeah,
we are still able to
but
have
what?
like the Republican Party. I mean, this is only one component, one of the thousands of reasons why Donald's unfit for office.
That's the thing, and I think it's the fact it's the flood the zone, isn't it? Like the reason why he's the dream for them and for the Republicans still is because there's so much about him that's bad that you can't pick one thing to focus on at one time. That's why I will never understand. I mean, the Super Bowl stuff got a bit of traction here, and
Mm.
the Bad Bunny stuff, and then obviously the thing he put out about the Obamas, right? Like, I mean, this guy is just racist. Like, I mean, I don't know how we're not able to just say that now. I mean, I'm seeing a few Dems. Is it John
Yeah,
Oh,
John Ossoff in Georgia. Yeah,
Costa. Yeah, in Georgia. Yeah, he seems like a bit of a. He seems not afraid to get stuck in.
yeah,
And he's saying it as it is. The blokes are racist. Like like my granny used to say, right? If it walks like a duck and it quacks, it's a duck, right? Like
yeah.
that's what he is. He's a racist and he's a sex offender. So you're in this position now where it's like not even to mention the things to do with the rest of the world, like Greenland and all that stuff. Not even to mention ICE. Not even to mention all of that, those horrors that he is committing. Even if he was operating a phenomenal economy and pushing forward things that change people's lives and helping everyone. Even if he was doing that, this would still be a man who is unfit for office. I mean, Richard
Exactly.
Nixon must be spinning in his grave.
Yeah,
You
no,
know,
exactly.
he'd
Yeah,
be
yeah.
thinking, my life was ruined by
That's
basically one thing that I did.
by
You
one,
know?
Trump has 1,000 Watergates a week, and it's like there's this situation where you're right, and on the racism front, I really want to drill down on that too, because you know people talk about, oh, we don't know what's in his heart or whatever, or like maybe he's not, the impact is the same. It doesn't matter whether or not Donald Trump was born or if Donald Trump has, a deep ideological hatred of black and brown people. I don't care whether or not he
Oh,
personally holds the views. Everything he does indicates that he is racist. It doesn't
yeah,
matter if we can go into his psyche. This man, Central Park 5, took out that ad
yeah,
basically calling for these young black men to be killed, never took it back. He had housing discrimination cases against him by the DOJ,
yeah,
and then got his Roy Cohned his way out of it, right? And then you have birtherism. He rises to political fame by questioning the birthplace of the first black president, and then he goes on to come down the golden escalator in 2015, saying Mexicans are rapists that are
yeah,
coming across the border and taking your job. Generalizing. His entire his political identity has been weaponizing racism for political gain. We didn't even get to
yeah,
Charlottesville, S-hole countries, shithole countries he talked about, which he's now admitted to claiming. He said the weaponization of racism and the racist impacts of his policies is all that I need to see to know that the man is racist.
yeah, exactly.
You don't need to, there's all this other, I can't deal with
These people who need proof for everything. These people who are like, oh, I need to. You don't. You don't
does he
get
have
to
to
know
say the
by
N-word?
someone's head.
The
You
impact
don't.
of his policies
Yeah,
deliver the impact of what the N word would. He is already he wanted to target Somalis. He says all the Somalis got to go. He generalizes people constantly. He says immigrants poison the blood. Like he is a bigoted human being, and it's like you needed to see the monkey video, Tim
yeah,
Scott,
really.
to say that was racist.
I
You
mean,
needed to,
at this point, he could stand and he could say the N word. He could say the N word direct to the American people in a press conference, and there would be people arguing that he's not racist. Like
the
that's
people who were
that.
defending him say,
You
oh
know,
well, what he actually meant
Caroline Levitt would
was
be like, ha, ha, ha. Well, actually, the president is an incredibly busy man who, he likes to use nicknames for things. Like you can see it now.
no,
You
no,
can
no,
see
yeah.
how he would break it down.
Yeah, yeah, and unfortunately, I do think most people would turn from him at that point because it's like at that point,
Mm.
but there'll still be some few who
But I
will
mean,
say, you know what, hell yeah,
you've got you've got people tuning in, not many, granted, to watch Kid Rock perform at the Super Bowl halftime show. A man whose lyrics of his songs talk about molesting teenage girls. He talked about how he wanted to. Why would you wait for the Olsen girls to turn 18? They're
no,
good
yeah,
now.
yeah, it's
That
just
man, that man is, talked like a sex offender, acts like a sex offender, and they're going. better not have this immigrant speaking Spanish. That would be terrible. Instead,
Yeah.
I'll tune in and watch somebody who says things like that.
I know, it's
Come on.
insane, and now that's kind of collapsed, like, I'm seeing even some people on the right being like, "Okay," like, even Nick Fuentes, believe it or not, was like, he liked the Bad Bunny halftime show,
The
which
thing is with those lot, they grift, but there's a limit with grifting because you need a world to exist that you can grift in, right? And if you want to
yeah,
be a fringe right wing upstart who says outrageous things and gets views, then you need the other side to exist as well. Still, so they have a balancing act to do, and you can see a lot of them reckoning with it. You know, they don't want to go too far.
and they can't be so
Um,
ridiculous, like, it's gotten to the point, fortunately, where reality where the lying is too brazen to where people can't, disbelieve what their own eyes have seen. That's why the Alex Preddy situation broke through so much. Renee Good, they were twisting themselves into pretzels trying to justify it. But with
yeah,
Alex Preddy, for them, I guess it was clear that he didn't do anything wrong, even though Renee Good was equally innocent.
I
But
think the
it's
fact that he had the gun as well. Do you think the fact that they brought the whole NRA thing into it?
yeah,
They
yeah,
saying
it's
about
just a
carrying.
complete, yeah, yeah. It's like a complete. When these moments can totally just contradict people's basic understanding of reality. It's like, oh, I thought the Republicans were pro Second Amendment.
Yeah,
And then it's like, oh, they're not. And then you now hear with the Super Bowl, it's like people saying, "Oh, I thought you guys liked traditional marriage." They had a marriage ceremony during it, and Bad Bunny was talking about love and unity, right?
definitely.
And it's like it's just it's collapsing. I know
Mm,
people are sad and it's frustrating, but like we see new polling that his support among non-college voters is
yeah,
declining.
yeah.
Trump is weakening, and again, I know there's fear about him. He's going to try potentially, most likely, to steal the midterms. I
Think
think it's going to fail, but
you
he's
do
going to
the Steve
try.
Bannon stuff that Steve Bannon was talking about. Because again, I don't know how realistically close Steve Bannon still is to Trump. You know, I mean, I don't know how much of his ear he still has. But obviously, Bannon talking about deploying ICE. And I know people like Bannon. The thing is, they love to like egg up how much influence they have, right? So I don't know if they do, but do you think that's a potential to see ICE deployed to polling stations to for them to make? Because surely to God at that point, people are like, that's a fascist.
No, I mean,
Take it.
yeah, I think it's a real possibility. I think it's a real possibility. Beanwhile saying they've been planning this. I think he's going to try. I think he's
Okay.
going to try. But I do think ultimately he'll fail. And I think yes, he's going to deploy ICE there,
If you
potentially
if
more
you were the
likely afterwards, potentially using the military to seize voting machines and try to claim
yeah,
before. That's why people got to do both in person voting and mail in, because what they're trying to do is exploit the red mirage where people who are voting in person, their votes are counted first, and then there's a delay on counting more liberal leaning mail in ballots. So they're going to try to potentially stop the count. But again, I think because he burned through so much of his political capital last year and already this year, it's more difficult for him to accomplish this stuff.
yeah,
Now, if he was polling at 50% and SCOTUS was more inclined, like
mm,
he's losing institutions. He's losing like soft power.
yeah,
I think like Amy Coney Barrett, I think Supreme Court ruled against him on this.
okay,
I think he is. And I know people are afraid, and again, I'm not saying he's not going to try. He's going to try. We could see some January 6th style stuff happen. We could see, but now with the power of the federal government, we could see investigations. Tulsi Gabbard's already trying to lay the groundwork. But again, a
oh,
lot of this stuff's going to be struck down by the courts, and then and then it'll be on the precipice. We're going to decide. We're going to see what happens. And I think because they're so incompetent and dumb, and because they're signaling so much in advance, people are going to be ready on the ground with lawsuits. Mark Elias's team will be ready. I do think it'll fail, but maybe
yeah,
I'm overly optimistic. But if at that point, if it doesn't fail, then all right, then democracy's lost at that point. If he actually pulls it off of stealing the midterms, and then we're in a different ball game, and we just need to reckon with that. But I don't think we're there. I think he's lost too much of the country, and I think there's I think they're going to be such an overwhelming amount of opposition to him that shows up that it's going to be too big to rig or too big to steal.
yeah. That is interesting because if it even Like even the worst dictators in the world, right? Like a Putin and stuff, he never wins by 100%, does he? So they know that they have to make it look at least in some way. And obviously, with people on the ground everywhere, I mean, he has opponents everywhere in every city, in every township, in every street in America, there'll be people opposed to Trump. So people will be watching and they'll be looking and they'll be expecting it, like you say. If you were a kind of a democratic governor of a state, for example, how would you approach this, man? Like, how would you? Because it's terrifying, surely, for them. Because what recourse do they have, to stand up?
I would be more forceful, and I would make the police and the National Guard defend. Like, if they actually were to send ICE to these polling stations, I would deploy the National Guard, and then it wouldn't be, I know Trump would try to then nationalize the National Guard to take control of them, but I think the state National Guard would stay loyal to the governors. We're talking
Okay.
Civil War
I know, man.
territory at that point, which
Realizing
would be
that
scary.
very
But like,
quickly.
if I'm a governor, then like I would be like, they deployed ICE to my polling agencies. I'm telling my local police force to go to these polling agencies to protect my citizens of my state, and I'm sending the National Guard to like go ahead, try it,
Yeah.
And at that point, we're cooked. At that point, we're
Oh
cooked. If
yeah.
it gets to that level, then we're cooked anyway, because
Because
that would be
surely,
the federal government facing off against state. But I think that's kind of stuff we would see if like ICE surged here in New York, for example. Try
yeah,
to come to New York City.
yeah,
See what happens, And I see meanwhile in the Minnesota State Police were deployed in Minneapolis, but they helped ICE. I mean, in some instances, yeah, they would try to like do crowd control. But again, you come to a state like New York, you come to where you have Governor Hochul and you have Mamdani.
I,
NYPD would be defending the hell out of the citizens. They're of
yeah.
us,
And
and I really think
even if you use like the National Guard and stuff in the state and they stay loyal, that gives him, I guess, at that point, that gives him the fuel to say, "Oh, they're seceding." These are
we're
these
in
are
bad
separatists.
territory. Well, at that
Yeah,
point, that's when Republicans have to. At that point, that's when you have to impeach and
surely.
remove him. You have to
Well, that's
impeach and
when
remove him.
without, well, I can say this safely in the UK. I won't put words in anyone who's American's mouth, but that's when you hope the CIA do what the CIA are meant to do. Like that's when you hope that there's got to be institutions that to fall
You got to
back on.
impeach and remove. You got to impeach and at that point, and maybe JD Vance would angle for that. Maybe JD Vance
You
would
think?
invoke the 25th Amendment. JD Vance wants power. Maybe he'd invoke the 25th Amendment. I don't know. Maybe he'd back it. I just know that like
Advance would have
yeah,
nothing to gain from
yeah,
that situation if it went bad.
yeah. And I just think that part of Trump's goal is to scare us and make us feel he's more powerful than he is.
Mhm.
If he could rig elections, why didn't they win any in the fall of 2025?
Yeah, yeah,
Why like they're getting cooked everywhere. The midterms are consequential for him, and I think he's scared, but I think they're gonna try to do some shenanigans. But again, like the governors, we're not in a federalized society where he has control over state elections.
yeah,
And that's what makes it better and more likely like the most consequential election regarding our elections was 2022, where a bunch
yeah,
of election deniers ran in governors and state races to try to run, like a bunch of Trump's goons basically ran to try to run to run elections, and they all lost, all of
yeah,
them.
exactly,
So we have Democrats running these battleground states, and I'm just trying to like I'm dwelling on this because people in the comments, are worried, and
yeah,
I really just want us to kind of recognize that homeboy is weak and flailing, and
mm,
you know it's at that point, the more politically weak he is, the more likely Republicans that care about their future in politics won't go along with this stuff. Like
yeah,
that's why the popularity point is important, because if he starts fully diminishing and then tries to take the election,
mm.
there's not going to be as much incentive for Republicans to back him when
No,
he's 80 years old, he's gone. If you
no,
want a
yeah,
future in this
really.
country, you can't collapse. You know what I'm saying? You can't back it. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I just know that like the fact that we've been having this conversation is insane.
It is, and I think surely the same thing happens with that flip in power with the Epstein files, right? Surely to God, I mean, you've got people like Kash Patel and Pam Bondi who know everything, right? And who know what's in there. And surely he has to keep them close now, because if they were outside, if they realized they had more to gain in the opposite direction of Trump than in support of him, I'm sure they wouldn't hesitate to say what's in there, or to come out with it, or to, whatever it may be. But it just seems so fascinating to me that so many people are still loyal to this guy when, aside from the politics of it and how politically weak he looks now, the guy looks like he's dying.
Yeah.
Like he looks like he looks
He has
like
no energy. He's no energy.
yeah, no, he looks
He's
like a
falling asleep in
shit
meetings.
right now. Like
Yeah.
that guy isn't like. I mean, he's never looked good, But and I'm not talking as Brad Pitt myself over here. But for God's sake, I mean, he looks ill,
No,
So
yeah,
I just
he's
think,
not looking good. And again, I just think it's sad that we've had our country totally taken hostage by a egomaniacal loser like him. But
mm,
I think the time will come when the fever will start to break. It's already starting to break in the public, and the
yeah,
culture. The cultural vibe shift has shifted
yeah,
already. Woke is back. We're in woke the sequel now. We're in the woke sequel era. Woke two, and I just think,
woke the return.
yeah,
Yeah,
the woke, the wokeness strikes back. Return of the woke. Uh,
return of the woke. Yeah,
and it's you said what?
with the wokies.
Yeah, with the wokies. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's crazy, and it's like it's sad. It's a troubling, it's scary time to be an American right now. But I think sometimes maybe it's fitting on the 250th anniversary of the starting of the revolution that we have to face down a tyrant again here.
Yeah,
And I think it's reawakening Americans once more. And again, we just can't let this shit slide again. Like
yeah,
we got lucky. Biden, gave us a little interlude there.
yeah,
That was luck. We made it by January 6th. But we inexplicably put this man back in power, and I'm running out of excuses for the people who supported him in the first place. But at this point, I think Americans are fed up, and I think we're going to be in a place where hopefully he gets pushed back in the midterms,
yeah.
a resounding defeat, and then 2028. I think Democrats got this.
You think? Yeah,
And I think
surely they will. Because I mean, things couldn't be worse for Americans. I just don't understand how anybody could stand up and say I'm happy with this, And when it comes to when he's been in for so long, like, people will undoubtedly just be unhappy. That they tend to be the trends politically around the world, regardless. Is if you're not happy with the current state of affairs, you vote for a change, and that's kind of the way. Even if they won't say it publicly, privately, they want to roll the dice again and see what happens.
exactly,
And hopefully that'll
exactly.
be the draw. But I
And
do
one
think. No, go on. Sorry, man.
No, one of my questions for you, from the UK perspective, is: do you think, we talked a bit about the world order and everything on our last live. What do you think about the return to that? Do you think that the next Democratic president could bring back a semblance of what we were, or do you think that the trust is irreparably tarnished?
No, I think they can, but I think it's that president is going to have to do a lot of radical stuff. Like they can't get in and be like, right, we're in. That's cool. Let's do the same as before, because we have to. I don't want to point the blame. It brings me no joy to. But Trump didn't just appear overnight. Like it took people losing faith in the other side as well to be able to draw them towards that. They're going to have to do something about trying to take seriously the concerns of those communities, which is the hardest thing. Look, the strongest, my favorite, and it's not. I'm sure it's a common viewpoint in America. It's not that common here. My favorite U.S. president of all time is Abraham Lincoln, because Lincoln, I just think the strength of character for a shopkeeper, to be able to, at the end of that conflict, what he could have done at the end of the Civil War,
If he lived,
yeah, and I just think, and the way that he could have chosen vitriol and anger and revenge, to finish it off. He could have punished the South. They really could have, really made them suffer over that, which is what normally happens at the end of a war, right? Is you make the one who started it or the one who caused it, if they lose, you make them suffer. But you can't do that because what happened in Germany at the end of World War One? We made them suffer. We bled them dry with
And
reparations.
then you end
What
up
does that
creating the
mean?
circumstances for
Exactly.
a Hitler. And the thing is, yeah, I mean, yeah, I think Abraham Lincoln really the way he handled it was great. And I think if he would have lived longer, we would have been able to see more of that Reconstruction world fulfilled. I mean, his early blueprint for it got us a lot of black rights. Those 2000 elected black officials during that early Reconstruction period. But Andrew Johnson botched it. Subsequent presidents botched it, and then we reversed everything. But it's like the next president's gonna have to be truly transformative. They're gonna have to be. I mean, Barack Obama already had to do a lot himself after Bush, because
Yeah,
people underestimate how angry the world was about the Iraq War. Like
and that was the word.
there was a
It's
total
it's been
lack of
eclipsed
trust.
now. It's been
Yeah, it's been
eclipsed, and
totally
that's the problem.
eclipsed now because at least George W. Bush tried to keep a semblance.
Yeah.
But it's still and I actually will just very briefly say that, like, I think I had George W. Bush as a worse president than Trump up until um, COVID and January 6th.
Okay.
Still,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
still, even amid all that stuff, because I took the lives lost during that war
Yeah.
as
Of course. Yeah.
inexcusable. And then once COVID came and Trump just willfully lied to people and let him to
Yeah.
death, and then January 6th happened, I was like, this is the worst president of all time. I already thought he was,
Yeah.
the second worst, but because
But
just
the
the
same from a
lives.
European perspective. Like from a European perspective,
Yeah.
people feel damage in Georgia. And I had this with an American friend not that long ago. And she used to be a Republican, a card carrying Republican, and she's not anymore, and she hates Trump. She's dedicated herself to that. She lives in Europe, but she told me that something along the lines of I can't believe my country's come to this. It was around Venezuela and around Greenland. I can't believe my country's come to this where America's subjugating other people around the world and all the rest of it. And I was like, how do I tell you that that's not new? Like, I'm sorry, like that's
Yeah.
our
Like
experience
like
in
like we
America
like we
in the
talked
rest
about
of the world.
before. Yeah.
Exactly, like that's not new, and the Democrats cannot go back to that. They cannot go back to just being like, we're going to be the world police, and we're going to, it's about healthy involvement in the world community, but about not about these old, kind of lines that used to exist that clearly don't exist anymore. And one thing they'll have to sort out, I think, and it'll be very hard for the Democrats to do this, will be their relationship with Israel. You can have a healthy relationship with Israel. You can be an ally to Israel if that's what you want. Not what I would do, but if that's what they want to do and it's the American incentive to do so, but you do not need to have this obsessive like Israel before America attitude. I mean, we saw it during the New York mayoral contest.
Yeah,
Where you're
yeah,
going to first the
yeah.
question. Where there's a reason Mamdani was cheered for being like, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah,
I'm
what
the
happened
mayor.
in Palestine was just so
Yeah.
clearly, an injustice, and there's a lot of, progressive Jews, and, I'm married into a Jewish family that were as pro-Palestine as you can come,
They
and
were
totally
outraged.
disagree with what Netanyahu is doing. And
Yeah,
I think there's a separation, there's a lot of nuance, people need to understand that, like, being opposed to what Netanyahu is doing is not opposed to the interests of Israel, because frankly, Netanyahu is juxtaposed to the interests of Israel. Netanyahu is the one who's diminished Israel's standing and trust worldwide by the way he's handled this war. And I think,
yeah,
like, you need to be able to firmly say that and not be
yeah.
afraid to speak
They
the
need to be able to
truth,
drag them
because
over the coals rather
yeah,
than you know
exactly.
welcoming them into everything.
And
Still,
and and on just on that front of what the next president's gonna have to do, they're just gonna have to, like, it's got to be a generational figure. It's got to be a person that's able to just use the power. Like, there's some precedents that Donald Trump has created that we're gonna have to use. Oh,
yeah,
we can single-handedly unilaterally destroy agencies, Donald? Okay.
yeah,
Bye, ICE.
yeah,
Return to a new reformed version of that. We're gonna have to dismantle the agency as it is and rebuild it in the
yeah,
shape of something more compassionate and logical. And then they're gonna have to just totally codify every norm into law, use the power of the government, just get things done. Then also the abundance agenda, the Ezra Klein stuff
yeah.
of cutting through all the red tape and regulations and everything. Next president's got to rebuild the entire country
Some of it
and
will
then
be
rebuild our
unpopular.
standing on the world. Some of it will be unpopular, but you got to do what you have to do to rebuild America on the world stage as well. A
Yeah,
lot is going to happen.
reestablishing USAID. That's going to be a big one because over here, I mean, a lot of we're big into aid for other countries over here
Of
still
course.
because that was the I mean, that was JFK's vision for how you do foreign diplomacy. And not just even from a diplomatic point of view, just there are so many organizations that rely on that aid. To pull out and withdraw, there's nothing patriotic about it. There's nothing strong about it. What it's doing is saying, I'm putting up my drawbridge and I'm not even going to look out the window, and I don't care. I
I'm
don't
going to
care
let
about
people die and literally withdraw resources from, we have hundreds of thousands of children that are going to be starving as a result of it. It's terrible. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I
I
know
need to plug my charger in, so
yeah,
please keep
I was also
going.
going to say, because I know you probably got 1,000 hits to get to. But yeah, I mean,
I
I
use
just,
Australia next. I'm speaking to Australians next, so
yeah,
that'll
we
be
got to give
great.
you some time to to recalibrate. But yeah, I mean, also if you guys are watching, subscribe. But I'll get to a closing in a second. But any final thoughts you
Oh,
have on where we're at, and just we got the Epstein files rattling everything. We've got the
yeah.
cruelty of Donald Trump at home. We have everything happening. What are your closing thoughts just on everything?
Wanted to ask you about Musk as well before we go. I understand. Look, he's not in government, and he's not a government person, and he's certainly not elected. I don't think he ever could be. But what happens with Musk? What kind of repercussions could Musk face? Because you know the world of tech. You've built a business in tech. Um, do you think there's any repercussion that somebody who has a private business like that, that's such a leviathan of like business, so big? Is he beyond repercussions? I guess is that my question.
It's Tesla. So
Yeah,
Tesla is the focal point. Tesla is the source of the revenue. SpaceX is government subsidized.
yeah,
Tesla, it's we've already seen the sales slump, right? We've seen the
yeah,
ramifications of his ties to Trump already taking an impact. So I think if more consumer boycotts of that, there's all these other companies you can buy. There's BYD. We see people buying more stuff from China, electric vehicles. So I think the pressure from the consumer on Tesla could have an impact. And also the board. Tesla's board could 1,000% decide to hold Musk accountable if they were pressured to do so. I don't see it happening, unfortunately, at the moment, but we're gonna have to see, man. We just, we need more accountability centers for people. And I think John Ossoff put it perfectly that this is the Epstein class of people that feels
yeah,
they're above reproach. And that culture needs to change. And the next
yeah.
president and next administration needs to create legislation. We need more accountability functions built into our democracy to hold these people accountable because enough is enough, man.
Yeah, definitely. And look, the thing of the UK perspective on all of this is just like, and it sounds awful to say, but it strengthens our case over here and being like, let's not get to that point. Let's not get to a point where, because businesses will get angry over here about regulations and they'll get annoyed about, you can't do this or that. But America's seen as like a bad news story, for
Yeah.
us on that front, because you need to be able to hold these people to account. You can't just do what you want because you've got the more money. We've seen that with Musk. Like, you can have money and be an absolute loser and a moron. Like, the fact that you managed to get richer than you were when you first started, but were already rich, like, that's not a skill set. Donald Trump doesn't have a skill set. This art of the deal nonsense. Like, yeah, it's very easy to threaten to walk away from something when you're already rich. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's no achievement there. They're not self-made people, and this lie that they are, I think that just does more to give them strength. And we've got to realize that if we want power to really be broken down, we got to go after that as well. We got to go after the money, because that's
No,
what they
you're right.
care about more than anything.
You're right. Yes, that's all spot on. So, hopefully we'll see more of that. But James, I'm gonna
Yeah.
let you go. I know it's
Thank
late
you,
over
man.
there. Appreciate talking to you, man. As always, we're gonna do this
Yeah,
again.
absolutely.
I'm out of town next week, but we will talk. I'll hit you over messages. We're gonna do
We'll do it
another
again.
live. We're gonna
And
do another
if
live.
anyone has any questions from who've watched the live, your followers, please just comment on this, and I'll be able to read them afterwards, and I'll go
Yeah,
through and I'll try and do some responses as well. Just if
for,
anyone has any questions from a UK standpoint.
for sure. And also, everybody, subscribe. All right, like we are doing independent journalism. We got my brother from across the pond over there in the UK holding it down. If you have not already, subscribe to James Matthewson Substack. Just tap the button at the top there. If you're already a subscriber to me, if not, Subscribe to AhmedBaba.news. I'm doing independent journalism. And if you can, become a paid subscriber, because one of the things we talked about last episode was the need for independent journalism to be supported at a grassroots level. I think often about Kamala Harris raising $1 billion in 2024, and then it goes away because the election's over. Imagine if even a fraction of that money came and went towards independent media. We'd have an ecosystem ready and geared to combat the right-wing propaganda machine. So if you can, subscribe if you're able, become a paid subscriber. If not, you can do it later, or you can just back us by commenting and liking this video. We appreciate you. James, thank you for your time over there in the UK. I look forward to seeing you all over Sky News and BBC for the next few days, man.
Let's see what happens in the next week. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we might have a new prime minister. Who knows?
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Pleasure to join you again, man. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
All right. Take it easy, brother.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.